and welcome to the AEW WrestleDream preview. I'm Adam Wilbourn from WhatCulture, joined by another Dolly Boys, Michael Sidgwick from WhatCulture, to look ahead to WrestleDream this weekend. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube, where we do daily wrestling podcasts where we not only review AEW Dynamite, but also AEW Collision, Raw, SmackDown, the show formerly known as NXT 2.0. Pay-per-views, premium live events. We have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a roundup that we complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. But as I said, joined by Michael Sidgwick to look ahead to WrestleDream on Saturday night. How are you feeling?
I'm not feeling a great deal.
Some of these matches got us feeling some kind of way.
A certain kind of way. Look, here's the thing about AEW. Not really in a good place with the promotion. I don't think the promotion is in a good place. I think they've squandered the goodwill over All In, All Out weekend, and that seems to be the recurring theme of AEW this year. It's uneven, yes, but also in many ways just actively quite just bad/questionable. This card just feels very slapdash in certain areas. It just feels like they've got a completely overstuffed roster, and they do, and yet you see this card and you think they need more.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like,
I can understand that.
So many wrestlers and so few stars. A lot of the builds to these matches have been just questionable in the extreme. I don't know. I said on Twitter earlier, there is a culture change that needs to happen more than a creative change. And that's not excusing the creative, some of which is shocking. But it just feels like they can't really do anything until there's some deep rot addressed. And the ideas do come. I said at the time, it doesn't get any better than the best of both worlds, which we saw with the Danielson triumph and then the heat angle across All In and All Out. And then you arrive at what this WrestleDream card is. It's very much it's this week, is it? It's not where you want to be. Look, we'll go match by match. If there's any more broader thoughts on the state of the company, I'll address them there, I guess. Because I don't want it to be too, I think everyone just does it all the time, and it can get a bit tedious. I get it. I get that. We'll just go match by match, and if any other thoughts occur, I will articulate them.
I think it's a fair way you come from, mate. I know a lot of people say, doom and gloom and what have you. But
that rating last night.
Well, yeah.
The rating reveal from Tuesday's show, rather, bloody hell. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, there is this, it's a terrible, terrible rating. Hopefully it's an outlier given the NXT competition, and they can creep back up to the top 5, which is pretty much as good as you can get for what passes for the TV industry these days. But it's a series of wake-up calls that go unanswered because everything's great. Sickos love it. Everything's great. And, it's that pattern of the press conferences and the media calls of, everything is great. We've got this number that we can massage. Can't get much bigger than $600 million,
Yeah. Well, this is what me and Scott were talking about, Scott of WhatCulture Gaming, saying hopefully the combination of this, like you say, malaise around AEW, but also the good news of getting this TV deal sorted is going to give them this opportunity to hopefully take a step back and go, right, what are we trying to do here? What's the long-term goal, and how do we turn this ship around, basically? Because it's not bad, like you say. You got Bryan Danielson as world champion, Will Ospreay's international champion.
Yeah, not to be too depressing about it, you could argue that this influx of TV money removes that impetus.
Maybe,
and it removes the impetus to improve and to address root issues. And in fact, it strengthens this resolve that AEW has of burying its head in the sand. Everything's okay. We've got the TV money to sort of support our position that everything's great. Because there's a lot of wake-up calls that just go unanswered. And a lot of it has to do with this feckless attitude where it just seems so inert that he doesn't want to do anything because it would upset some of his higher-ranking talent. And just this general defensive, paranoid siege mentality. And I guess it's not paranoid, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you. Like, WWE is after them, and they make certain play after play after play to just weaken their position in the market, to just chip away and they've been doing it for years and years and years. So if I'm Tony Khan, I understand to a degree why he does what he does, but just put your best foot forward and address the rot, because the rot is set in a long time ago.
Root and branch, you've said before.
Root and branch, it's not the podcast for that. Certain things might occur when I'm thinking about these matches, and I'm sure there will when we get to Chris Jericho. We'll see.
Before we get to the matches, one thing I want to talk to you about is something that was advertised on Dynamite and has led to a lot of speculation. Swerve Strickland is set to appear at WrestleDream. Is this a clue for Bobby Lashley showing up?
Yeah, it's more than a clue.
Yeah.
Bobby Lashley, I'd be stunned if he doesn't show up, and I like this a lot. What you can do is... Look, across WrestleDream, I don't know what we're going to do with the main event. We'll get to that. I still haven't even fully formed my thoughts on that. But if you park the main event, you've got an opportunity to do two things here. You could argue that maybe Tony Khan was a little bit too region-specific in his booking patterns when he would give a lot of hometown stars or talents a really great night. And that was nice, and it was one of the advantages you had during the Vince era, which they no longer have, and they need to reorient what they're actually doing, because that business model of, well, it's pretty easy this, we can just not do what Vince does. And I'm not saying that's why they established themselves, because I thought a lot of masterpieces established AEW to where it is, but that was a huge advantage which now no longer exists. And you could argue that by doing something nice for every town that they visited for a while, where possible, if there was someone from the state or whatever, ultimately WWE rarely does this, and they're still red hot, maybe giving a great product as opposed to these little regional surprises is the way to go. But it is sort of important. Especially when they haven't really visited the Pacific Northwest that often, they can do a bit of both. You can get some heat, because if Lashley's debuting at WrestleDream, if you want to establish him as a major, major player who's instantly credible, he kind of has to destroy Swerve and get that extra heat because of the fact that it's Swerve in his hometown. Balance that out by having Darby beat Brody King, for example.
Okay.
So that's the way I would go with it, and I think maybe that's the reasoning behind this pretty predictable and just, local match flavor to Darby Allin versus Brody King. But, get the heat on Lashley. Portray him as a big deal. Have him and Shelton Benjamin destroy Swerve. Because ultimately it will just feel like Bobby Lashley is yet another person who just feels normalized within weeks. Unless they go for this bold thing of debuting in your upcoming rival's hometown and just beating the piss out of him, That's what I would do.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Lashley especially has to come in. They've had a lot of arrivals, but he has to come in and dominate. And having him beat someone like Swerve initially and then subsequently, and using that as a springboard, he was just a few months back, he was the world champion. Where the hell is Bobby Lashley and the Hurt Syndicate go from here? I'm really excited. I think this could be a real shot in the arm for AEW.
I don't necessarily agree. It'll be very, very interesting and compelling. I don't know if it'll necessarily... I think they're in a sort of position now where literally no one can move the needle. There are proven needle movers on that roster who've moved the needle in AEW in prior years or in WWE. Moxley and Mercedes Moné were the ratings triumphs of 2020. And I know WWE outdrew them every week, but that was more to do, I think, with their established presence and all the rest of it. In terms of moving the needle, Jon Moxley did monster numbers relative to AEW's patterns, and Mercedes Moné was a TV draw of the year in 2020. Like, her match against Bayley was an absolute smash by the standards of 2020 WWE, and she goes to AEW. It makes no difference whatsoever. I think it's just the stigma surrounding AEW is such that no one can move the needle, including Bobby Lashley, who has got tremendous numbers in his favor, which he probably leveraged as part of this deal that he's got with All Elite Wrestling, as confirmed by Fightful Select. Shot in the arm, not in terms of like metrics, but in terms of interest and quality, one would hope.
You alluded to it there, Darby Allin versus Brody King. We didn't really like the build to it on Dynamite this week, but nevertheless, you put Darby and Brody in a ring together and they produce magic.
Yeah, you put Darby and literally anyone in a ring together and it produces magic. So much so, I've described them as a cross between Mick Foley and Sean Waltman in that worst case scenario, you have a pretty great match with Darby Allin. Best case, he either makes or rehabs somebody. And that's how good Darby is. He's got exquisite chemistry with Brody King. So I am looking forward to this match. Not necessarily informed by that weird build and how it just appears to have happened out of nowhere. But because the match quality is going to be absolutely incredible. And the fact that it's on pay-per-view, Darby Allin knows what a lot of people either don't or seem to forget or don't deem important is that you have to be pretty awesome at all times. Otherwise, he'll never get considered for the spot that Darby desperately wants and seems like it's his to inherit. And that is the face of the company. It's in his hometown as well. All of which is to say that I'm almost terrified by what he's going to do in this match. The bumps he's going to take because he'll never have a more supportive set of fans behind him to give him that adrenaline that he needs to push forward in these matches after taking such ungodly punishment. And, you know, I'm not one of these idiots who says that Darby Allin just will kill himself. He doesn't. He's got an element of craft. And there's a craft behind stunts, which he doesn't rely on all the time. He knows how to fall. Like, that's the beauty of Darby Allin. So I am terrified about this match, but at the same time, I know I'll be worked for a lot of it. Brody King's amazing at conveying danger, even if he's not necessarily really hurting people. He's just a great hoss. That's what hosses do. It's predictable, but Darby's selling is so fantastic that he's going to make it not seem that way over the course of the match. But the fact that it's in Seattle, he knows he wants that spot. He knows he has to deliver and keep delivering to get that spot. I will get terrified. And that's what they want out of a Darby match, you know?
Let's talk about the ROH.
One thing, actually, right? You know what? Now I've got this weird thing. It's not a weird thing, actually. It's an incredibly rational thing about attendances and building sizes relative to how many people go there and setups and how it can all inform the atmosphere. And atmosphere is paramount to a pro wrestling show. The sightlines in this Tacoma Dome aren't great. It's got that weird setup where, like, there are a lot of seats on the floor, like a lot of floor seats, where in a lot of arenas these days, the modern ones, it's sort of like it goes into a bleacher, like almost straight away. There's tons of floor seats. So if you're like 8th row or whatever, you're on the floor, and it's one of the worst places to sit. And I always find that unless the building's absolutely rammed, a setup like that can have a detrimental effect on the atmosphere. So I do worry to a degree about the atmosphere. But
last update a couple of days ago from WrestleTix says 6,472 tickets distributed. So it looks like it'll get there or thereabouts as what they got last year.
Sightlines that worry me more so than the attendance. If I remember correctly, Dynasty had a similar, if not lower number, where it was like, ooh, that sort of guaranteed, it's an AEW pay-per-view, it's going to be seminal at best, merely excellent at worst. People will file in. That number is creeping down, which is worrying, but Dynasty had, I think, about 6,000 at most, and if you listen to the Danielson Osprey reaction, I've sat in arenas with more people and it produced nowhere near that level of noise. So it's more the sightlines, but yeah.
Well, let's talk about the ROH World Championship match. Mark Briscoe defending against Chris Jericho.
Yep. Who won the feud between Chris Jericho and Hook?
So that tweet did numbers, by the way.
Numbers.
Yeah, Hook won it.
Hook, yeah, but you'd never know. And that is a Jericho pattern. What is the point in beating Chris Jericho? Every single Chris Jericho program is premised on the idea that he wants to work with and elevate a young guy to the weird point now that has become his canonical character as part of the learning tree.
Went into it, yeah.
And even before the learning tree was an actual thing, Chris Jericho said in character that's what he wants to do and what he wants to accomplish. no one gets, you losers, but no one's elevated. They're the most pointless, overlong stories in all of professional wrestling right now. A complete and utter waste of time. And it's not even a good time. It's a pretty mid time with the odd highlight. I'm not one of these idiots who says, Chris Jericho is valueless and offers nothing. I think he should go away, as a lot of people do. But, there's the odd bit of entertainment. He can construct a story that will get Taz such an awesome pop at Wembley, for example. He still kind of knows what he's doing, but no one wants to see him do it, or very few people want to see him do it. Like, Hook, it lasted about 6 months. It incorporated at least 2 pay-per-view matches off the top of my head. Maybe there was a trios one in there somewhere. There was a trios one at Forbidden Door, a singles at Dynasty, and a singles at All In. And that All In match was like, why does this exist? They've already had a match on pay-per-view that went 17 minutes, and it was ass. And Hook got nowhere. And in the replies to this tweet, I'm not even the biggest Hook guy. I've said for as long as I can recall, he needs to go on excursion. He doesn't really move like a wrestler. He doesn't work a schedule that will get rid of those weird non-wrestler movements that he can't shake because he's not in the rhythm of it yet. So I'm not even a Hook guy. If anything, I'm off the Hook train, and I don't think he's in the correct promotion or the correct sort of system for him to evolve further.
Yeah.
He's stagnated, as a lot of wrestlers do in AEW, and that'll be a theme when we get to another match. And yet, all that said, on a level of principle in terms of storytelling, if you have this 6-month odyssey where you finally beat Chris Jericho, even though everyone finally beats Chris Jericho, that should mean I know this is pretentious, I don't care, I think it captures it nicely. In a healthy narrative ecosystem, if you take 6 months and tell the story that Hook has finally ascended to a level where he can once and for all definitively beat Chris Jericho, it should be on to the next level. He should be vying for a championship. Who's vying for a championship? It's Chris Jericho. None of this makes any sense. And the thing about this match is that Chris Jericho, he's revealed himself to be a dumbass, I think, over recent years, but there's levels of dumbassery in wrestling, and he's still quite clever by the standards of a wrestler. He knows how to pick and choose people, because he might have spotted, Hook, he's promising, but that promise is evaporating. If I do this deal with Hook, and I do my usual thing, I can always just turn around to people and say, he's not ready. Couldn't have a great match with Roddy Strong at Grand Slam. Yeah. He's obviously not ready, so maybe I have to take that spot, whatever. And he's not daft as well. He's rapidly running out of cool acts to glom onto.
Yeah.
Because there are so few cool acts in an ice cool promotion.
That's patched up the argument with MVP, according to reports.
Fair enough. Absolutely fair enough.
So it'll be like, Bobby Lashley sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. But what he's done, and maybe this is all Tony Khan's ideas, and Chris Jericho just goes, okay, boss. Just put that disclaimer in case I'm being too cynical. But if there's no hot acts in AEW, and there are about 2 or 3, generously, there are really, really beloved people who, for their deep catalogue of work, if not necessarily what they're doing now, have commanded the enduring respect of proper wrestling fans. Highest on that list is probably Mark Briscoe. And who's Jericho wrestling in this match for the world title, even though he just got his ass handed to him theoretically for 6 months by Who got Chris Jericho going for an ROH world title? And I've said this before, I'll say it again. Delightfully devilish, Chris, because I'm going to watch this match and I'm going to want Mark Briscoe to win, because I want Mark Briscoe because he's an absolutely phenomenal babyface. He works me into thinking this could be the one for him. If he wins this match, he could go on to do something. And I just want to see him win because he's like the best guy. So Chris Jericho's played a blinder here. And I think this is the most I will emotionally invest in a Chris Jericho match. Not through the strength of the storyline for how long it's gone on or whatever. But I will invest in Mark Briscoe and have an emotional reaction to this match because Mark Briscoe's in it. Chris Jericho's not that dumb. He's very dumb, but he's not that dumb.
This is... I'm surprised I'm about to say this because I haven't really thought a lot about this match, if I'm honest. But there's a part of me that thinks that Chris Jericho might win, and possibly even hopes that he does, because, yes, he's the world champion, but he's the Ring of Honor world champion, and I've got far higher hopes for Mark Briscoe within AEW. Like, I could easily see him being a world champion. I think that there was an opportunity, and there still is an opportunity to really elevate him to that level. But he can't do that as Ring of Honor world champion. So there's something there. There's also a bit of me that thinks, you've referenced Jay, obviously, and that would make me lean towards, well, he kind of has to beat him. But also, you could tell the story of Mark's emotions getting the better of him, and that being part of a strategy for Jericho or whatever.
Yeah. Lick a tit or whatever.
They've laid the groundwork for a Rocky Romero conglomeration betrayal, and who could see that one come in? So it's unpredictable for me. I think Briscoe wins.
It is unpredictable. It's got it going in that favor. There's always this constant sort of weird intention to get ROH up and running as a TV concern. It seems like completely pie in the sky stuff to me, but Tony Khan believes in the brand if very few other people do. So there's always on that sort of level the idea that, they tried it before when he was the Ocho.
Yeah.
And it didn't really pan out because there was no interest in really any network paying for Ring of Honor programming. So they might try it again, and, Chris Jericho could be Le Champion of ROH or whatever, like a tit or whatever. I will say, right, other than the fact that emotionally I will invest because I just want the world for Mark Briscoe, Chris Jericho can still brawl. Chris Jericho can still do a lot with a little in a very, very underrated mini-series. Well, 2 underrated mini-series against Suzuki and Shibata this year. I thought he worked wonders with both.
Really like the Shibata match.
The Shibata match was the best possible version of a match that them 2 wrestlers could wrestle as themselves against one another. And the Suzuki match was, I just resent Suzuki. Love him, but he's just, the aura's completely gone. The formula's completely exposed. And I thought Jericho did a great job. And Mark Briscoe's nowhere near as washed. In fact, he's not washed at all. He's eternal. Jericho can still brawl, and he can still go to a certain level. I've just got a feeling that with Mark Briscoe's enduring popularity, the fact that he's a great, great, great brawler, and Jericho's a vastly underrated brawler, I think this will surprise people, and I think it might even go on first.
Do you want to talk about the match you want to go on first now?
Before that, I just want to say, because people do want the predictions, and I always forget to do that, I'm more interested in the quality of the match than the winners, which says a lot about AEW yet again. I'll go with... I think Jericho will win.
Okay, I agree with you on that one. Let's talk about the match that you have campaigned to open this show, and I'm completely with you on this. It's the AEW Women's World Championship match, Mariah May versus one of the wrestlers of the year for AEW, in my opinion, Willow Nightingale. Love her. Arguably deserves to win the title here. I don't think she will, but I think she's done a hell of a job. The Statlander stuff obviously speaks for itself, and I was really pleasantly surprised by the pivot that AEW did on Tuesday with Britt Baker being ill, and then the whole beating 3 world champions and what have you.
Yeah.
Willow's great.
Yeah, Willow is absolutely fantastic. I've said this on Twitter. I said this on the Dynamite review. I'm going to say it one more time. You'll never see a Reddit thread or an engagement form tweet of, guys, what was the best 4th match on a pay-per-view ever, right? They don't do that because those matches they can be great, but they tend not to be important. People will always write lists or debate or whatever, like a tit or whatever, the best opener of a pay-per-view ever.
The 4th match last year was the AEW World Tag Team Championship #1 contenders match, or the Future Shot, won by the Young Bucks.
Yeah.
Lucha Bros, Guns, and Orange Cassidy and Hook. Strange pairing.
Yeah, that guy teaming with that guy. People debate pay-per-view openers. It just seems to me to be such a cheat code to continue to attach a bit more importance to women's wrestling in AEW if they get to open a pay-per-view for goddamn once. You know what I mean? It just seems like such an open goal because it seems like AEW's aim, and I don't know why this is the case. Maybe it's just a mess of their own making that they are trying to. It feels like they try and insidiously improve the women's division rather than make this absolutely massive run at it. Even though Willow Nightingale is one of the actual hot, beloved characters in a promotion with so few of them.
Pure babyface.
Yeah, pure babyface. Like the Owen final was great. They've continued to hopefully prove that match wasn't an aberration because the physical angles that they've performed in on Dynamite over the past couple of weeks have been thrilling. Like they seem to have this great physical chemistry. I don't think Willow's going to win. I feel like, again, it's if Mariah May hasn't had a title celebration yet, maybe have that title celebration before a big-time title defense where you could maybe even work yourself into thinking the title's going to change hands. So I can't see Willow winning. I mean, I would do a bigger chase personally. I know a lot of people want Willow to win because this Mariah May world title reign hasn't been outstanding by any measure. But I want that feeling when Willow wins the big one of, oh my God, I'm ready for it. To the point where it becomes predictable, but purely because you want to see it so much, in a similar way of WrestleMania 40's main event or the Full Gear 2021 main event. There's a certain magic of, I just want to see it happen now.
Yes.
I know it's going to happen. I just want to see it. That's the feeling I want. I want that reassurance that's all going to be okay for Willow. The match should be great. I think the worst thing about, the bad thing about my relative assurance that Mariah May is going to win is that this dreaded Carney impulse to, air quotes, protect wrestlers, there's a good chance the finish could be absolutely bobbins.
Tony Storm shows up around this?
For a post-match angle.
Yeah.
For a post-match angle, certainly. I guess, or you could save something for Dynamite if Lash... They tend to do a lot of returns and debuts on one show and one pay-per-view. It's an AEW thing. Maybe they've done too much of it. Maybe, I don't know. I could personally wait.
Yeah. There's two things before we move on. Number one, I have an answer when someone asks me what's your favourite fourth match on a PLE this year or pay-per-view this year, because Stat versus Willow. Chicago was the fourth match all out. So I know the answer to that one.
But if you were to say, what was the best, you would think, oh, that one. No one remembers what goes on fourth.
No.
People remember what opens, and you could very carefully and craftily attach a sense of prestige to women's wrestling in AEW if you give them these slots that are way more memorable than the fifth match or whatever, lick a tit or whatever.
And we said on the Dynamite preview, and I think it's sadly come true, they've put two women's matches on Dynamite. This Dynamite that's going head-to-head with NXT, it does that number. They are going to turn around next week and go, well,
we tried.
Back to the one women's match until, what's off the top of my head, I don't know, maybe the Dynamite just after the presidential election.
Yeah,
I'm
something like
just
that.
thinking around that. I saw November time. Nothing else happening then, is there? Oh, yeah, NXT's coming to Wednesday night that week as well. Yeah, Ladies' Night looks set to continue. Right, let's talk Jack Perry versus Katsuyori Shibata TNT Championship.
This is a very thin connection between the match card and the theme of the show, because it was originally envisaged as a tribute show to Antonio Inoki. It feels like Shibata is on this card for that express purpose. It's a Jack Perry match. It always feels like a kind of soulless match that sits uneasily between a pretty trad US-style morality play match. He'll cheat a little bit, but then he always wants to do a lot of moves and stuff. Like, if I'm Jack Perry and I've got his ear and I'm in AEW, I'm telling them, study up tape of Jimmy Rave. Study up tape of someone who was incredible at showing ass. I understand that wrestling has evolved, and I don't necessarily see a small guy. Some fans do, but I don't. And I don't think AEW needs to cater to this sort of fan. But some fans see Jack Perry and think he's too skinny, can't do anything. And I don't get that, particularly as a babyface, because he can just use resilience and things like that. If you're a heel and you're looking like that, and you're controlling and you're doing the heat, I do sometimes find it difficult to take seriously. I just think he works the wrong heel role. He should be a little bastard. He should be a little bastard who gets off on cheating. And it's not just raking the eyes every now and then or cutting someone off with the steel steps. Like, he needs to just fully commit to the bit. He needs to be a work rate Dominic Mysterio. No, he needs to study Jimmy Rave. He needs to realize that no one takes him seriously when he's controlling matches as a heel. And I don't necessarily think it's his size. I just think it's his character as well. All of which is to say that I worry about this. I was really let down by the match against Danielson. I thought that would be not as good, but a more cathartic version of the strap match against Ricky Starks, where Danielson just straight up kills a dude after that dude was being a little obnoxious prick to him, and it would have been incredibly cathartic. That's how I would lay out this match. If I was Jack Perry, that's how I would work this match against Shibata, but the evidence stacks up that Perry doesn't know how to play the heel role that he should be playing. Like, his sense that he was defiant in Blood and Guts, took the chair shot to the head. It was almost like a display of being a badass. Against Danielson, he did that martyr pose as if to say, I'll let you beat me.
You're a weasel, you're not.
Yeah. But I don't think it's going to be a weasel here, and I think there'll be a really low ceiling on this one as a result.
And the old Tony Khan booking tactic has reared its ugly head, despite the fact that technically Shibata offered Daniel Garcia the title shot. Jack Perry's winning, so Garcia can hopefully take the title off him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that there was an element of, they haven't signposted this. They haven't signposted this. They've presented Shibata as a viable winner and given you a glimpse of a direction that could materialize if Shibata defeats Perry, which I don't think is going to happen. I think Perry's going to win. But I did appreciate that little touch on Dynamite, to be fair.
One of the most unpredictable matches on the card, I think, is the International Championship match. It's Will Ospreay versus Ricochet versus Konosuke Takeshita. I genuinely can't call this. I think there's an argument for any of these men to leave with the international title. Ospreay obviously has had a brilliant run with it. And it's the thing with Don Callis on Tuesday night. Ricochet's just come in. That'd be a hell of a way to establish him of like, wow, he's come in and immediately won the international title, basically. Maybe he would have won it in the one-on-one match had, Takeshita not interfered. And Takeshita is Takeshita and should be belted up or pushed to the moon at every available opportunity for us.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't like the idea of this Ospreay Callis thing. From day one, the idea that Ospreay was always going to come in as this savior-level babyface. And yes, there was continuity with Don Callis. I just wish that was paid off and just ignored. Very, very early. Very, very early. But it's dragged on. It's never resonated with me on any emotional level. And it's hopefully at least kind of over now. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, this match should be absolutely off the charts. Incredible. There will be a sequence in it, doubtlessly, right, where you'll see something absolutely spectacular between any two of the three, and then the third will come in and just spike your heart rate up even more. There is a sort of risk, I guess, that I could look a little bit too contrived, but I've just got a sense that this will be one of those rare three-way treats where there's a reason why someone's on the outside. And I think they are so great at twists. They're so great athletically. They are so great at putting these ridiculous matches together that they'll always find a reason for the third to be present. I'll be stunned if you get that overselling on the outside. I think they've got such a magic way of wrestling this sort of style that there'll be these incredibly intricate, dizzying 3-man sequences. Some of them might look choreographed, but that's still a damn sight better than the other triple threat matches that you see. Here's the thing, right? And I'm going to give you an example. This isn't just AEW did a bad rating, so they must be worse at booking than WWE in 2019. I've got an example of why they are imminently. And because there's a lot of really questionable booking patterns of late, that invites a healthy cynicism for me. And on that, I do worry that they're going to do that dreaded device where Takeshita might pin Ricochet.
Yeah.
And Ospreay doesn't get pinned. If you do sub-old, it's weird to call it old, but we are in the past tense. If you do sub-old WWE booking, I'm going to project more of it. This match should be incredible. If it were me, I would have Ospreay pin Ricochet because Ricochet really needs to prove himself. This international title division is like the banger division, for lack of a better word. It is the absolute banger division, and Ricochet is that Guevara level more than the Ospreay Takeshita level. I'd have nowhere near this title. He has to really earn it, and if he doesn't earn it, it's not my money, and the money doesn't matter because you've got loads of it coming your way. And it sends a message that if you come from WWE and you really don't cut it to the level that is anticipated, tough titties, give you more opportunities to earn it, but I just wouldn't put the title anywhere near Ricochet. I don't think he's been great by any stretch of the imagination, and I would run Ospreay Takeshita back as a singles at some point, and I would give Takeshita the belt. Even if he cheats, and you can, air quotes, protect Ospreay. It's Takeshita, like Ricochet doesn't move the needle. Takeshita at this point is 10 times the wrestler Ricochet is. I feel adamantly that for whatever, if the soul of the company still even exists, it does a lot for it if Takeshita gets a nod above Ricochet.
I do think I can visualize a hidden blade being followed by Takeshita hoying Ospreay out the ring and saying thank you very much.
Yeah.
It'd be a great near fall. I'm not sure if I want that to be the finish. I also do think that whilst Ricochet has lost a step compared to Ospreay, as we've talked about a fair bit, and Takeshita is far better than just a big lad who can chuck him around, be such an athlete. But like the things they must be plotting, I mean, the stuff that just Ospreay and Ricochet could do together, but now you're like, and we've got the use of Takeshita in there. If we want someone to, I don't know, throw us in the air to do something, perfect.
The best version of this match is going to make you make involuntarily absolutely stupid, unintelligible noises.
Yeah. The best version of this match is
scary to think
minimum
about.
4.5 stars, isn't it? Let's be honest. I agree with you, though.
Old money as well.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I want this to happen or not, because I really like Will Ospreay as international champion if you're not going to immediately put the big belt on him. But I can see a shock title change and Takeshita leaving with the belt, and it's long overdue for me. But I won't beat AEW up too much if he doesn't win, because the C2 is just around the corner, and we all know what that might mean.
Yeah.
But then it'd be another heel to babyface, quick turnaround, but
Whatever.
Well, Chris Statlander or whatever.
Look at it or whatever.
Speaking of shock title changes, Sidge, could there be one for the AEW World Tag Team titles?
My worry is that they're going to pretend that Private Party are more over or more redeemed than they actually are. I would not even entertain if I'm Tony Khan, I'm not entertaining the idea of putting the titles on Private Party. You cannot have as bad a 1-minute match as they did against the Iron Savages. I'm hoping it's just let's see what you've really got. Because Isaiah Cassidy's promo game has been stellar. I have taken note of that. A lot of people have, in fact. But in the ring, they have stagnated or even regressed badly. I do sympathize to an extent. Mark Quinn had a bad injury and a long recovery time, and he doesn't feel like the athlete of old. He was one of the few, like with the past 5 years, it's hard to be astonished. Some of what he did in 2019 genuinely made my jaw drop, and to be bluntly honest, I hope that's what you come here for. I haven't felt anything for Private Party's athleticism in quite some time, and that's kind of all they've had for a long time. The story is reeked. It's so stupidly rushed. They've gone through about, I would say, a minimum of 6 months of story. God, I sound like f***ing Bischoff with this. And that's the AEW finds itself in the incredibly unfortunate position of producing creative that warrants grifter criticisms. And the thing is, the grifters, and I know the game, they've been saying it before it was true, right? For attention, for money, for clicks, revenue, engagement, however you want to put it.
Because people were desperate for... it's not actually the land of milk and honey.
Exactly. When it actually was in 2021. This stuff was going on in 2021, right? And the grifters, maybe they've been around the block enough times to know this is a cyclical business. At some point, I'm going to look like a genius if I keep saying all this stuff. We've reached that AEW is in this incredibly unenviable position where a lot of what the worst people you know are saying is true. It's real bad at times, and this storyline's real bad. You have absolutely burned through this story. Private Party, and I think this is after All Out, come out for a match. It's like them in action. Mm-hmm. They're at this point in their really not great careers, they are the wrestlers that the stars are put in action against when they just need a cheap win. Or they don't never need one, really, but that's a different story for a different day, a different problem for a different podcast. And then they get their asses handed to them by the Blackpool Combat Club.
Yeah.
Then they lose a trios match to the Blackpool Combat Club. And they beat the Iron Savages, and then at this point, they stake their claim to the AEW Tag Team titles, and poor Tony Schiavone has to say, my God, they're on form. So, there were literal jokes a couple of weeks prior to them beating the Iron Savages in a rubbish 1 minute match, right? And it was about 2 weeks before that landmark victory where they aren't even included in the tag team gauntlet, the omission from which could have been a story beat on this long old comeback of how far have we fallen in the ranks, out of favor, that we can't even be in a tag team gauntlet, casino gauntlet match where the Righteous are in it. Mm-hmm. No offense to the Righteous, who I don't rate, but come on, right? It's the Righteous. They come, they get their asses kicked, they disappear for 3 months, and then they do it all over again. If you can't even get into a match that the Righteous are in, what does that say? So you could have gone from there and had them lose a few more times, but then it's a little bit narrower, a little bit more heartbreak, and you start to think, they're trying really hard, and then you can start putting the wheels in motion of the comeback, and then they can get a pretty big match, an eliminator, maybe even against the Young Bucks, and then lose in Hangman Page, Brian Cage style, where you think, it's happening. It didn't happen. That's strange. And then you do a grudge program against someone, you reheat them, and you earn this comeback, and then you can finally go for that title shot. They beat the Iron Savages, Wilbourn, in a minute, and Tony Schiavone was talking about was contenders in a title, in a division, for a title that they... Because it's not as if it was some really glaring omission. I know Private Party have their fans and their supporters, and if people have been genuinely worked by this transparent story, I mean, fair play to you, it hasn't happened to me. A lot of people went, checks out. The stock has fallen absolutely massively. And then what's worse is that, yes, subsequent to that win over the Iron Savages, they got a win over the Young Bucks in a trios match, and then they won a 3-way match on Collision, right? If they had done that and then said, well, the Young Bucks are coming for you, as rushed as it might be, you might think, they've won 3 matches recently. Yeah, go for it. They'd all but said to the Young Bucks, after beating the Iron Savages in 1 minute, we want those titles. And Schiavone was like, yeah, man, that checks out with me. So the next two matches, after they've already signposted the direction for WrestleDream, which I'm a little bit incredulous at, they become narrative obligations to make you think that they've been built. They haven't. They absolutely haven't. It's just token wins to make it seem like they've got an impressive win-loss record, and they haven't, right? Here's a stat. It pisses me off, right? In terms of the wide, it's not just a dump on Private Party. They can only do what the booking tells them to do.
Yeah.
Okay. The Young Bucks won the tag team titles in April, I think, Dynasty against FTR. Barely defended the titles for ages, and now we are in October. April, May, June, July, August, September, October. We're looking at 7 months, between 6 and 7 months, something like that. With one exception, which, as we know, is a rule-proving exception, the Young Bucks have exclusively been pinned in either eliminator matches or trios matches or multi-man matches to their upcoming challenges to build or set up the matches. That is 2018, 2019 asked WWE creative tag team booking as it gets. It's so phoned in creatively. It's so beat us in a trios match or whatever, lick a tit or whatever. The Acclaimed beat them in an eliminator. On Collision, the BCC beat them ahead of All Out.
I think so.
Now Private Party teaming with Shibata, was it?
Correct.
Beat
Yeah.
them on Rampage.
Yep.
To it didn't determine the match. I think the three-way did, but it built them up and all but said, it's absolutely crap booking. And I've used the phrase, and maybe it's hyperbolic. You look at the rating for Title Tuesday, maybe it isn't. There's this really awful death of a dream quality to AEW right now. Private Party, second week of Dynamite, you think, in a year, they could win the title off the Bucks. No. Stagnant as all hell. You've got the Young Bucks who I'm really fighting for them. Just seem checked out. I'll just do a job on it in a trios and get a win back in the title match or whatever. A checked out Young Bucks. Moxley, before he got the bit between his teeth again, just felt checked out. Jericho gobbling up TV time for no narrative purpose or entertainment value. This match, maybe I'm reading too much into it. It just feels like death of a dream stuff. When you watch that match on the second ever Dynamite, you thought this title match is going to happen someday and it's going to rule. They're going to run this back as a sort of a tag team rivalry that defines the tag team division in AEW, and they've just set it in motion with this wonderful shock result. They're going to have a long series, a division-defining series, and it's going to be awesome. And then we arrive at the title match on a pay-per-view at long last, and it's the drizzling shit in terms of booking. I'm depressed by this match. And you know what? They've had a match on Dynamite earlier this year, and oh boy, it was pretty rough and nowhere near as good as that one in 2019.
This was what I was about to say. I was looking on their cage match there to sort of verify some of the things you're saying, and yeah, they lose the tag team title tournament quarterfinal to the Young Bucks in March. And then what have they done after that? Aside from, like you say, the really lazy way that they were booked, what have they done after that to be like, might not be watching? Collision is kind of a better example, especially for, seeing something like Hologram we'll talk about in a bit. You might not be watching Collision, but you should be, because this team's getting a bit of momentum behind themselves now. Have they? Look, you look at Rampage, loss, win, lose on Collision, lose on Forbidden Door, lose on Rampage, lose on Rampage.
It's Private Party.
Lose on Rampage.
Jesus Christ.
Lose on Rampage. Win on Rampage in August. Lose on the 0 hour all-in, 20 people in the match. Lose on Rampage. Win on Dynamite in a dark match against Evil Owner and Turbo Floyd. Win on Collision. Lose on Collision in the Trios title match. And then, like you say, win on Rampage, that Trios match against the Elite. beat the Iron Savages in a comprehensive 65-second victory, and win the number one contention. I don't think they should win the titles, to be perfectly honest.
They shouldn't.
And it's going to sound like a gimmick, me saying you should put the tag titles, if you're going to put it on anyone, on the Outrunners. Why not? Let's try it. Let's see what happens. Like I
would give them a sentimental near loss just to heat up the Young Bucks.
Exactly.
That's what they exist to do. That's what I would have done on this pay-per-view, to be honest. Strike while the iron's hot. Something like the Outrunners. I love them. They pop me every time, but I don't think they're going to pop everyone forever, you know? I've got two more things to say about this. I know I've talked about it a lot, but I think this match captures the failings of AEW more than any other on the card. So, and I've said match quality-wise, my projections are low because they had a match earlier this year and it wasn't great. Here's two things that I'm going to be generous or optimistic about. One, Private Party haven't impressed me for a long time. It's pay-per-view. If it goes on early enough and you capture an energized audience, maybe they'll start to be up for it and they'll want to impress. Do they want it? If they want it, this is the stage where they can show it. Maybe they should have been shown more on TV. I don't know. The Young Bucks have been in form of late. Yes. But they've also had their last two high-profile matches involving Will Ospreay, who, like him or not, is incapable of having matches that aren't incredibly loud and dramatic and that the fans are into. So maybe Young Bucks aren't finished, or maybe they were just in there with Ospreay, who's literally incapable of... Ospreay does now what the Young Bucks did 3 years ago. Have matches that are just absolutely impossible to be good. They're always great. And even if you don't like them stylistically, they're always loud and dramatic.
Mm-hmm. Young Bucks retain?
I really hope so, because it'll feel like you're just letting Private Party down.
Yeah.
Because you're setting them up for failure with a reign. Because they're obviously not in form. They're obviously not like firing on all cylinders. I think if they do win, you're not doing them any favors, because this tag team title run is set up to fail because they don't feel like champions.
Yeah, people will immediately be looking past them and going, cool, so I guess if heel FDR win the belts on the first attempt, or GYV or whatever. Yeah. Right, Hangman Page versus Jay White is another match scheduled for Saturday night.
I'm excited about this, and I'm also, it's one of the good things about WrestleDream, which just feels totally slapdash, is there's more than one match that I'm like, I don't know who's winning this. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's a case of no good couldn't come from this, because Jay White, he's had some great moments in AEW. A lot of people think he's had the best tag team match in AEW TV history. I don't, but it's up there.
FTR one.
Yeah. So it's not to say it's been a total bust, but it's not what a lot of people thought it would be. And he's yet another one of these wrestlers, these men's singles wrestlers who just can't break through to that main event scene, even though he feels like a main eventer. And he always, when that happens, it feels like, well, it's a failure. It's just a failure of a terrible recruitment signing strategy, in my opinion. He's just turned babyface. He didn't do well as a heel in the build to Full Gear. And quite frankly, I would put some of that on Jay White. Not everything is on Tony Khan. Everything is on Tony Khan. If you can you remember a single thing Jay White said during the belt theft angle? Did he have this really cool threat or soundbite, or as a way of building his character or building that conflict with MJF? I'm putting you on the spot right now. Name one thing Jay White said during that promo, other than "I'm the catalyst."
It's the funny thing is, I remember you saying this as he was doing it.
Yep.
And I went, "Yep, he's right." Because right now I'm sat here on the spot, and I go, "I got nothing, mate. I'm really sorry."
He's the best forgettable wrestler, one of the best forgettable wrestlers ever, Jay White. But you've got to go with him. He's incredibly talented. There's always that sort of Schrodinger's thing with Jay White. Is he class or not? He's class sometimes. He's just forgettable and bang average the next. Is he a star or not? I never know, man. I never know. But if you're going to turn him face and try again, he has to win his first match. But his first match happens to be against one of the few incredible characters AEW's got right now. So it's almost like no good can come from the finish. So I'm just going to repeat myself. This version of Hangman Page is not Hangman Page.
I love this theory, by the way.
Of Hangman Page, it's not Hangman Page. It's almost good that he loses as a character, because eventually he will realize that he's not whole His life is not in balance. He's not himself. He can only win and do good things when he deserves those good things. Hangman Page, I insist, can lose. But I try not to go into too many tangents. And I try not to go into the wider state of AEW's creative failings or whatever every time I discuss a match on a pay-per-view. Has this idea of there's a right way to lose in AEW, which is one of their core tenets from day one. We saw it with Hangman Page himself at All Out 2019. We saw it with the Elite in late 2019. Yeah. Does this work for people? Or do they just start seeing people as losers? You know what I mean?
I particularly buy it with someone like Hangman Page. Ever since you sort of introduced this theory, I really liked it because he came in, obviously he had the sort of few wins in the tournament, then he loses the final, and then he loses Blood and Guts, and then he loses to Darby Allin. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You've just brought him in as a heel.
Because he's not a heel.
But he's not a heel, yeah, and that's why. And then, the big wins that he gets, he's low-blowing Jeff Jarrett in a lumberjack strap match. Or he wins the steel cage match, but it's lights out. Big whoop. That doesn't mean anything for your track record. And you beat Juice Robinson. I love Juice Robinson, but you beat Juice Robinson on the 5-year anniversary. Jay White would be a scalp. Jay White would be like, look, this guy, he's won titles here. He's won titles in New Japan. He's been the, number one contender for the world title. But I am also intrigued, to see what happens if he loses again here.
Yeah. He kind of has to.
Yeah.
Here's the thing as well. I can't help but be a cynical prick. The finishes in AEW have been pretty piss poor of late. You thought, who's going to win out? Danielson and Okada to do a rubbish finish. Ospreay Ricochet already, who's going to win? Rubbish finish. I actually liked it, but the consensus, rubbish finish. Mm-hmm. You could do more than one rubbish finish on this show. It's not beyond them right now. It is not beyond them at all.
But yeah, I'm, long term, the redemption arc's going to be this is what I'm, we're holding these candles for AEW of we're talking about it, me and Andy on a Q&A. I was like, because someone sent us a lovely message, you'll like this, in honor of Brian Alvarez. Someone said, why is the AEW audience frittered away with the bad rating that they got? And I just harkened back to what you two were both saying, you and Hamflet, about the whole, I know it's rose-tinted to look back on 2019 and say 2 years of storyline straight out of gate, and everyone's new, every match is new there.
Everything felt like it had stakes. It was
going somewhere. You felt like, all right, well, if I get on this bus now, I don't know what I'm talking about. If I get on this bus now, it's going to take me on a journey. If I get on board, I can see where this is going. Whereas the week-to-week stuff now, and I know they've had issues with travel and talent and what have you.
I want to, at some point, write something really long form.
But what I'm saying is Hangman Page is an example of something that I like because I can see this isn't just going to be Hangman Page is a bit grumpy, isn't he? And then he's going to grumple his way to the world title. No, that's like you say. It's what you say. That's not you. You burning down people's houses and stabbing people in the face with syringes is not Hangman Page. Yeah. And you had the.
It's going to hit like crack when you hear the babyface theme again.
Exactly. So in a way, I kind of want him to lose.
Yeah, I want Jay White to win.
Right, on to the next match. And I have a question for you. Can MXM Collection kill Scissoring Forever? Spoilers, by the way. That's a spoiler for a match that's been set up on Rampage. But why are you watching this before Rampage if you don't mind spoilers? Yes, it's the Acclaimed versus...
This better get shunted to 0 hour.
Okay. This is MXM Collection versus the Acclaimed with Mansoor saying on Rampage... they would take the Acclaimed spot on the show, as in once they beat them on AEW, they'll take the Acclaimed spot. And they promised a special surprise in their corner that would kill Scissoring Forever.
The Rock.
Because of The Rock with scissors. Yeah. Darby Allin's Rock or Dwayne Johnson?
Either or. MXM Collection... I'm amused by them. I do want to see them on a pay-per-view. I don't want to see them. They're not that good at it. End of. And the Acclaimed, if they went away for a year, I wouldn't give a toss. This is absolutely, I do not wish to see it. Hey, you know what? People still obviously buy the Acclaimed merchandise in a decent amount of numbers. So I think I'm speaking on a lot of people's behalf. They've clearly cooled down from their 2022 peak. It's nearly 2025, by the way. Mm-hmm. It's mid-October.
Yep.
Don't care who wins. I don't think the match will be good. I'm not that entertained by either act. That I'd want to see them duke it out, settle their differences, prove who the better team is on pay-per-view. You know what? If the rest of the promotion was really cool and hot or very, very good, I'd probably have a little bit of like a dessert stomach for some like
levity.
Yeah, a bit of levity. But it's Yuck has run amok.
Yeah, that's your new one.
That's my new one. That collision was just Yuck City. I couldn't care less.
What's the end scissoring forever? Is it going to... Who's he tried to cut their fingers off?
Swerve?
This was Swerve. I was going to say, wasn't it? He kidnapped Billy Gunn and cut his fingers off.
Creatively, that dude made a lot of wild swings, and I admired him for that, and clearly he developed something that really worked.
End scissoring forever. I want to see what it is.
Maybe it is.
Snap your fingers, or like something that holds your fingers like that so you can't scissor. Because
like when you're doing your nails?
Yeah. Some sort of medieval torture device. Or what was it we said in the office? Hans. Maybe Hans is finally going to debut for them. Or what was his name? I've forgotten his name now. Oh, I remember now. Swerve's old mate, who joined Bordeaux, whatever his name was, and they attacked Keith Lee. Trench.
Yeah, that's right.
He was on the list I saw the other day of the 10 people we forgot in AEW. I was like, I'd never forget that.
I'll never forget Trench. Yeah, that's right.
What was it? Parker Boudreaux, that's it. Jump in the air every time you punch someone. Sorry, Trench, it's very nice to have you on the podcast. I forgot that was very rude. Thanksgiving's coming up. I just want to run through some of the classic things that people eat at Thanksgiving. You tell me whether or not you've tried it. Turkey.
Yeah.
Okay. Potatoes.
Yeah.
Okay. Legumes.
No.
Okay. Peas.
Yeah, I've had peas before.
Bye, Trench. Right. Oh, I'm really sorry. I've messed up. I've written down the match, one half of the people in it, and I haven't got the second half. It's a 2 out of 3 falls match, which is a really nice surprise that's been dropped. Hologram versus, and it's just a big smudge on my bit of paper here.
It's against the Beast, Mortos. I cannot friggin' wait for this. I cannot friggin' wait.
You got a neat, nice amuse-bouche as well on homepage, where he's facing the Butcher, right?
Yeah.
The Sidgwick Murray Derby, as I believe Matt Reigns called it.
That's an awesome way of putting it. This match is going to absolutely rule. If everything connects, it's going to be amazing. Even if a few things don't, it's going to be amazing. They've got incredible chemistry. I love this, This is the anti-Jericho match. One, that'll be good. It'll be exciting. And this sort of harkens back to that. It's happened a few times where... Remember John Silver versus Orange Cassidy from Full Gear 2020?
Yeah.
Where just someone caught fire and wasn't maybe necessarily meant in the grand design, not that friggin' exists anymore, to catch fire. Nonetheless, they did get rewarded with a pay-per-view match, and as I recall correctly, they smashed it. Beast Mortos was brought in because Tony Khan brings in everyone to do some jobs in some cool matches, and he just resonated with people. People started to love the Beast Mortos, including you. And he has worked himself onto a pay-per-view card, and this should get time and focus, and it's got a stip, and I couldn't be happier for the Beast Mortos. And Hologram as well.
Yeah.
He was designed to get over the big vignette rollout, the win streak. That was meant to happen. Beast Mortos, I don't think it was meant to capture the imagination of the people quite so much as he did. I can't wait for this match. It's going to have time. It's going to get over because people have gravitated towards Mortos to the extent that they have. And I love 2 out of 3 falls. It's one of my favorite stipulations. It's obviously got this rich lucha. I mean, it's the norm. What I love about it is that not only are these matches so exciting, do they have such evident, palpable chemistry that everything they do looks so cool and you've never seen it before. It's like, well, that must be the finish. I've never seen that. Yeah. It's not. They've got that, this must be the finish because I've never seen it and it's so cool quality. And the great thing about the 2 out of 3 falls stip is that what it accomplishes is it makes every near fall that bit more convincing because you know there's going to be at least 2.
Yes.
I love the stip.
Unless it was being used in sort of latter-day Vince WWE when they were like, I'd break coming up, do a pinfall then. Yeah.
I love the stip. I love the wrestlers, one more than the other, but still. I love the chemistry. I love philosophically that this match is even happening. I love it all, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be spectacular, even if it's not perfect. The floor is spectacular here.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited for this. This is like you say, harkening back to the good old days of AEW. Like you say, earning your way onto the pay-per-view, and not that it used to be like, oh, is it the pay-per-view this weekend? But oh my God, it's the pay-per-view this weekend, and we get that as well.
Yes, like the Pac Orange Cassidy.
Exactly. Obviously, Beast Mortos now managed by Jake the Snake.
Yeah.
So that's the way you give the one to, I assume Hologram wins 2-1, but that's the way you give the one to Beast Mortos. Surely the involvement of the association with LFI now.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. Can't wait to see this.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be spectacular as a floor.
Right, let's get to the main event. It is the main event. It's also something I've put off talking about because it makes me feel uncomfortable talking about it, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
It's for the world title. It's also sort of for Bryan Danielson's career, basically.
Yeah.
It is Danielson versus Mox. I'm really scared.
I'm really scared at the result. It just hasn't occurred to me that Danielson is going to actually retire as a full-timer. He's been instrumental over the past 3 years because AEW has, it's a bit of death of a dream, a lot of false dawns. It hasn't been invincible for a long old time. In fact, you could even argue that it was only invincible. The Invincible era and the Danielson era only overlapped for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Danielson's been that guy throughout some periods of very tumultuous backstage going on and creative decline and just it's gone a little bit. It's gone. Danielson's been that bedrock. Danielson's been that guy who has provided seminal match after seminal match, made you have that perspective of, no, it's a great thing. It must be a great thing, AEW, still, even post-peak AEW must still be a great thing because you get Final Countdown, you get some of the best matches of all time on this somehow regular basis. And I'm not ready for that to end. And to be honest, I don't think AEW is ready for that to end. I really don't. I know they've got Ospreay, they've got Takeshita, they've got Okada, they've got an incredible bench. But my God, Danielson's different gravy.
Mm-hmm.
And the worry now is that Moxley is a major, major star in AEW's history. He's motivated. He never had the ball. He had the ball, but it was during the pandemic. He's never had it. Is that?
It's a good point.
It's just the one thing I'm holding. Even though the thing I'm about to talk about hasn't happened yet, which makes me think, oh, maybe they'll just beat Mox. Maybe they'll just beat Mox. It's that I can't see them beating Mox in his second match in this big I care again sort of. It seems like some of the ways some of the things he's talking about cryptically means that there might be this huge unfathomable narrative twist that's going to redefine AEW as it goes into 2025. And he kind of has to have the belt or at least the credibility to go that far. Christian Cage having not cashed in. makes me pause. And maybe they'll do it after Danielson squeaks past Moxley somehow and then gets killed by the BCC. Then you have the best 10-minute match of all time with Christian Cage. That's what I'm predicting. But then it makes Moxley's new heel character look like crap if it's not handled perfectly. And guess what? I would trust Danielson to handle all this perfectly if he wins a match directly after the Moxley win. I've got no idea. The only thing of which I'm certain is that there are going to be some spots in this match, probably shoot headbutts, that I think, oh dear, I don't think you should be doing this, lads. And to me, that is cinema.
Yeah.
Honestly, the only worry I have of this match is that it's going to be so brutal, so attritional, so grapply that it's going to have a similar vibe and atmosphere to the Grand Slam main event of, does this even work as a wrestling match for a crowd of that size? I don't know. It's just nothing's for sure here. And I'm intrigued by it at long last on this card.
There's an argument to be made. I pitched it for Dynamite. You could pitch it here, arguably, that Wheeler Yuta betrays Bryan Danielson. He's the one that costs him.
They need to do something with one of these young guys. Big.
And yeah, the whole stepping away from kayfabe, you look at Danielson's association with Moxley, and if you think, right, who would Danielson pick to be the one to retire him? Semi-retirement.
Moxley.
Mox is the one.
He thinks he's the best in the world, and he loves him.
And you could easily see or hear him saying, I tell you what would be a really good springboard for this new version of Mox and his new group is retiring me as world champion.
In Seattle.
Yeah. That's why I feel so sick about this.
Yeah.
I hope Danielson wins, but like you say, it's such a difficult tightrope to walk, particularly with the knives out as they are with AEW, even more so now, for people being like, oh, cool, Mox's character's dead then.
Yeah.
That's the point.
I
don't know. I mean, this is the thing that's really getting me most excited about. Like, I'm really excited about Ospreay, Ricochet, Takeshita. But like you say, I don't know what that last half an hour of this show looks like. And I'm sort of excited and nervous at the same time about that, because you could sit here and say, Mox wins and Shane McMahon comes out to raise his arm as the leader of his new group or whatever. Or you could say Danielson wins and then Cage cashes and then you get another. It's like, oh, great, fantastic. Yeah. But then how do you hand? I don't know is the perfect answer. I will go on a Danielson win just because that's what I want to see. And we'll worry about how you handle it with Mox and his group after that. Because I'm not ready for it quite yet to be over. But it's a complete toss of a coin in my head. Like, I can't wait. Let us know your thoughts on that match, on all the matches, in fact, in the comment section below, or on X at WhatCulture WWE. Watch, they can follow both of us. You can follow Michael Sidgwick at
M. Sidgwick.
Follow me at Adam Wilbourn. Follow us all at WhatCulture WWE. Make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts. And we will, of course, be back on Monday. We'll be back tomorrow and stuff, but we'll be back on Monday to review WrestleDream live on YouTube, all going well. But for now, this has been the WrestleDream preview. My thanks to Michael Sidgwick. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy WrestleDream, and we will see you soon.